Welcome to the Digital Remodeler podcast. So glad you've chosen to join us today. And with me is Chris Mousley with Crossbeam Builders. Chris, thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You bet. And Chris, you've got a great story, and I appreciate you coming on and just sharing with our audience today. And I'm going to pick your brain and see if we can pull some great nuggets for our listeners today. So you've got a long history in the trades. You founded Crossbeam in 2010. Let's talk about how you decided to take that leap from working in construction to actually running your own business. Kind of walk us through that journey that you took.
Yeah, so basically, we work in a resort community up here in Utah, Park City, Utah's. Really, I came here to work in the ski business. So while I wasn't skiing, I was working in construction with another company. Uh, and it was really a paradox of worlds, right? Like, so in the ski business, we were service oriented, we're taking care of clients, we're just really making sure that they're satisfied every step of the way. And then I would step out of this role into a carpentry role, uh, and the client satisfaction wasn't as important as maybe the word craftsmanship or the end result, the product, right? So like I always thought that that was a crazy uh, part of our world where we work so hard, blood, sweat, and tears, to get a home made for people, and yet there's always some sort of resistance between the contractors and the clients. I always thought that that was a strange situation. So really what I wanted to do is I wanted to start fresh, start a company that was really from the beginning built to take care of clients and service them and create a great experience versus just getting something done.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, you mentioned even on your About Us page that you have this mission to deliver this connection process and service that you felt were kind of really missing all too often in the business. And is that really kind of the moment you realized that things were missing as you took that journey? There was this, I'm going to call it tension that you described. And then as you had that realization that you're talking about, um, how did you build business around that?
Well, I mean the technical side of it's easy, right? Like we learn the trades, right? We build formats and systems, right? Like if you frame a wall, right, and you have five walls to frame, if you frame the first wall the same as the fifth wall, right, you got to get better along the way, right? So you got to kind of have a sense of awareness. So really, what I was trying to do as a technician, we usually had a pretty good relationship with the clients, right? When it came to our supervisor or the GC or the boss, somewhere in the business world, there was a breakdown where they weren't on the same page or what have you. Not 100% of the time, but more often than I cared to see. So, right, like how can I build a better connection, better collaborative relationship from the beginning? It seemed to me that there was some processes missing, and the service driven nature of our business, especially like in new home construction, was really missing, right? Like we don't really provide, a product like a car where you go buy the car and the car works or not. We're providing something that's, a little bit more intense than that. But really what we're trying to do is we're trying to provide an excellent service along the way.
Yeah. So early on, what did a successful job look like for you? And then here you are 15 years later. What does that look like today?
Yeah, I mean, success of the project really to me is, and I tell every client this, that, if we're not giving high fives and 5 stars all the way through this, what are we doing? Right? Like, so I really try to work up front uh, in the early stages and the planning process of, okay, well, this is a collaboration. We're working together. Yes, we're going to build this home for you, and that's our task. But you have a part of this relationship as well. You have a role, right? It's communication, it's collaboration, it's working through the difficult situations as we go. Uh, because it's a journey, right? Building a it doesn't matter if it's a kitchen remodel, a bath remodel, or a multi-million-dollar home. The journey might be longer, uh, but there's always ups and downs. There's problems. There's things that we run into, right? And how we're going to manage that relationship along the way is really the key to what we're trying to do, and that's what we built our systems and business around.
Yeah. Well, what do you think is maybe one of the, I'm going to call it pain lessons that you had to learn early on that really emphasized to you that process of the importance of collaboration all the way through?
Yeah, I think, in the beginning, you do what you know, right? So you go out, you try to price the work, you build a relationship with the client, you get the job, you go through. One of the things that was really interesting to me, especially in, the first couple of years, is at the end of the project, there was always this big negotiation, right? This big, like, well, we didn't think you did this right, or we didn't, there was something missing, or this color wasn't quite right. And I'm like, okay, well, why are we waiting to reveal that at the end when the final bill's done or something like that? So um, one of the big kind of lessons that I learned is, clients are clients. You can be friendly with them, but they're not your buddies, right? Like, you got to be clear, and then boundaries are good, right? Like, this is acceptable behavior, and this is not acceptable behavior, and this is kind of how we're going to deal with that along the way. So I think in the beginning we lost some traction on some projects. Uh, maybe because we weren't communicating as well as we could, or, uh, letting the client understand that we can't build a steel stair set in the middle of winter, right? So let's build that into the schedule so that we can restart that back in the spring when the weather's a little bit more uh, cooperative, right? And then, in that process, that was the big thing that I realized, that we have to set some good boundaries and make sure that you're on the same page throughout the project. So at the end, it just doesn't turn into some price negotiation.
Yeah, yeah, that's wise. What do you think were the biggest risks you took early on in those first 5 years? Any, near misses or, I would say defining turning points, defining moments that you can remember in those first, 5 years?
Yeah, like, this was a bootstrap business, right? Like, I didn't, like a lot of contractors, we didn't have a bunch of cash, and we were probably underfunded to get started and all that other stuff. So what I did is I kind of developed a plan uh, to ensure regular cash flow, right? To make sure that we weren't operating as a bank, and that we were getting kind of the payments on time and all that other stuff. Um, as we developed, that got better and better, and I found a lot more confidence in asking for the money before the invoices were due. One of the biggest risks that I took and I didn't see coming is, we took on a fairly substantial uh, project that I could write a book on this thing. It was such a cool project, and there were so many funny stories along the way. But um, at the end of the project, the funding wasn't coming through. Um, and I don't really recall what the situation was that with that was. But there was a point where the client said, they owed us about $40,000. And, I'm just a little guy on my own trying to figure out how I'm going to finance $40,000 on this project. And eventually it worked itself out. She came, the money came through. I couldn't remember if it was insurance or what was the holdup. Might have been probate or something like that. But you need to have some lifelines, some ways when that situation or those situations come up that really aren't going to put so much stress on you that you can't perform, you can't be there for your family, you can't be, all of those core values that we talk about, the integrity and all that other stuff. When we get pressed and stressed, it's easy to kind of fall behind the pendulum on those things. So, get a little bit of equity, whatever it takes to protect yourself when those situations arise. They usually work out, but it can be a lot of stress along the way.
Mm, that's good advice. As you grew, you know, from a small operation into a full service, company, when did you first start to realize you really needed to put some systems in place, and not just wing it on certain aspects of your business?
I've always kind of been a systems guy. Like if you're going to do it, let's come up with the process. Maybe a better word is process guy, right? So like if I was leading a house frame, what best practices can I put into place in order to make this thing more efficient, right? Same with when I started business, it's like, oh, how do you do it, right? So like I got the accounting software, I learned a little bit about it, I made some mistakes, I stepped back. But really in the beginning, it was pretty clear that if you're going to start as a smaller company, one or two guys, uh, and run everything, you can't do it all, right? So pretty early, we jumped on, we used, the QuickBooks system, create the invoice, all that good stuff. Um, and then that was running pretty pretty well for a while. Um, but then as we started scaling a bit, right? Like just writing down, I remember Michael Stone was a big part of my learning journey. And I remember listening to an article or a webcast or something that he put together about Gantt charts. And as a technician and putting together a schedule and a Gantt chart, I'm like, it was so above my head that like I couldn't even fathom it. But then like putting that together, figuring it out, then the programs on the Builder Trend, Job Tread, all of those things that we have now make it so much easier. And then what you do is not only have a vision for your business, but you have a vision for the job. Putting those systems in place make your life so much easier because now it's just a call to the next trade person. Okay, I got 5 days before we're ready for you. Are we on the schedule? Are you ready to go? Do you have the parts? Versus calling, hey, where you at? Right? Like, and no communications, right? So building those systems has always been part of Crossbeam, and we we really enjoyed that process.
That's good. What would you say is probably been the one uh, system or process that's been the biggest game changer in your business?
Hmm. I think um, scheduling and being transparent with the scheduling, I think that was a major leap forward. Because what it allowed us to do is uh, kind of see into the future with the project, and then we have targets all along the way. So that was definitely a game changer, implementing more of a, kind of a forward thinking schedule, allowing for makeup days or weather delays, building that in, uh, and really being able to hit, that end date on those targets consistently. But I think the biggest impact, and I can't stress it enough, I talk to our trade partners, the office staff, project managers. Like, if you don't document your day, if you don't keep a really effective daily log, and I played with that, well, we'll do a daily log 3 times a week, but really you need to do it every day, because what that does is it allows you a minute to sit down, plan your day in front of you, and then also kind of think about the day behind you. What didn't get done? Why didn't it get done? And make a note so that we don't have that again. So my the thing that I value the most, doesn't matter if I'm, just running the business and somebody else is managing the project, or if I'm managing it, is really keeping an accurate daily log, getting your to-do list, right? Tomorrow I need this, I need these materials, I need these people mobilized. I think that's really the key, right? If you could stay in front of the curve there with those things, right? You're not doing 20 trips to Home Depot. You're not, running to the supply shop, right? That gives me the ability, when the plumbers show up and they don't have a length of pipe, okay, I can run down the street and get that while you guys keep working, right? Like, let's get ahead of this thing. So I really like that daily log. I like that. I think that that moves the needle, not only for us as a business, but for our clients as well, right? Like, if you spend a whole day snapping out a foundation and they don't see any work coming, right? Like, they have to understand that, the planning that we do today creates success for tomorrow.
Hmm. Yeah, and that, you're serving, luxury remodels, custom homes, condos, home builds, renovations. You're across a wide, geographic area. How are you maintaining craftsmanship and client experience while you're still scaling across a wide variety of project types and sometimes a wide geographic area simultaneously? How do you ensure that client satisfaction always stays high all the time?
It's a challenge, right? Like, um, consistent communication. Um, but we've been able to really leverage some of the tools. Currently, we're using JobTread, for example, right? So we've done several projects. Uh, again, we're in a resort community. We have a big summer. We have cutoff dates. If you're not done by November 15th, we're not letting you back in the building. And in the upper elevations by November 15th, sometimes we can't get to the building. Um, so really having the ability to communicate, and that, again, those platforms allow you to go both ways. So we've actually done 2 projects where I've never even met the owners face to face until project delivery. It's like like something you see on TV, where the first time they see the project is the first time you meet them. It was bizarre. Um, and that always puts a lot of stress on us. But I think what that does is that, by sending pictures, by sending the daily updates, by keeping the schedule like active and not turning it off when you get frustrated and you don't know when you're going to be finished, um, keeping those best practices rolling forward is what ensures a good client experience. Um, so that's the key, I think. Sometimes we get to the end and we do everything, as promised, and there's still some friction along the way, right? Like, that overall thing is you have to understand that you did the best you could, right? And you provided the service that you wanted to keep that job on track, and all that other stuff. So it doesn't work 100% of the time, but yeah, as long as you kind of like let them know the problems and own the problems and find a solution that works together, that seems to work best.
That's good. So Chris, as your company's grown, what metrics are you watching today that you weren't watching early on? What are the things that are most important for you to keep your eye on today?
Uh, so the big thing that we watch is we do a lot of job costing, right? Um, that's like if you're not doing job costing, if you don't have a good understanding of what your overhead is, right, you really have to understand what the numbers are. Uh, because what that does is that puts information in your pocket that gives you a lot of confidence, right? So if I know all those numbers, I'm not discounting my work or underselling it because I know what I need to do to hit those goals. Um, so we job cost a lot. We work really hard with our trade partners up front to make sure they do a walkthrough and say, look, right now the money doesn't matter, right? Whatever the cost is, right? When we get to contract, if you go above your cost, that's going to be a whole different situation. It's going to be a conversation that is really one way and it's not going to go good for you. So let's work together to get these numbers right, you know. So the initial budget, we review that. That's another thing that, you know, combing through those bid packages, highlighting things that might get missed, and then really having that conversation up front with our trade partners is really important. But I would say that we spend most of our time watching job costing and making sure that we're coming in on budget because that just makes everybody happy, right?
Yeah. As things have obviously, moved forward, um, you're focused outwardly to the customer on quality, craftsmanship, attention to detail. But at the same time, the industry is being disrupted by new tools, new technology, obviously AI. Everybody's talking about, you talked about some of the technologies you've deployed. Um, let's talk a little bit. Obviously, AI is the buzzword. Have you adopted any of these new technologies beyond, like the scheduling softwares and things like that, into your project management or your estimating or any of the processes that you're using now?
So as far as the like budgeting, bid packages and scheduling, we already kind of have that built out, so we don't leverage AI on that so much. Where I've really enjoyed it is um, I'll quite often ask questions that I get asked, and then I can create, you know, a database or, you know, some metrics to answer those questions, right? How long does a bathroom remodel take? Well, I've had bathroom remodels take, you know, 4 weeks. We've had them take 16 weeks, right? Like it depends on the size. It depends on what we're doing, the difficulty. Um, and with, you know, kind of the way I work, I don't want to give uh, wild information, right? Like to me, if somebody said, well, it could take 4, it could take 16, right? That might be a little bit too broad of a range. So, right, going in, asking AI some of these questions has definitely been a game changer as far as, okay, well, don't overcomplicate it, Chris. Here's a simple answer. Um, we use it quite a bit for research, and you know, for demographics, right? The market is so crazy now, right? So being able to have conversations with uh, whatever platform, and we kind of look at many of them just to compare and contrast as they develop here. Um, that's given me a lot of confidence that no, I really do know the answer, right? Like, and this is just you know, a supporting role. Um,
That's good. So, what's been the hardest change for you with adopting technology?
Some of these platforms are so robust that it's hard for people to learn them as they go, right? Like you have to really kind of like adopt them over time, right? Like we're going to get this system in place and then we're going to develop it a little bit more. Uh, some of the typical pushback that we have is, uh, I can't access it because I'm on the job site and I don't have Wi-Fi. I don't feel confident filling out the paperwork until the end of the day, and sometimes I forget it. Just really a lot of it comes down to training uh, and really creating buy-in, right? So like I always stress that, the systems that we use are our personal systems or are for our personal to our business, right? I can't expect a trade partner to go in and fill out a daily log for me, right? But if I ask him at the end of the day, hey, send me some pictures of your work, right? Then I can integrate it. So it's more creating a partnership for outside organizations to use that. Um, if my project manager says, well, they're on the schedule, they should know when they're supposed to do there. Like that, to me, that's a little bit absurd. Yeah, we can send them notifications, but there's probably a good chance that they turn the notifications off because they were getting annoyed, or they're getting them from so many other contractors. Reach out, give a call, make sure they understand where uh, they fit in our schedule, right? So that we're creating a partnership instead of, just sending random information. We can't lose that personal touch while we're using these systems.
Yeah. So, what do you say would has been one of the toughest decisions you've ever had to make, whether that's, walking away from a project or restructuring, maybe it's a personnel decision, and what was the lesson you learned from that?
Ooh, that's a challenging one. I I think one of the more recent um, decisions I struggle with. Not really I struggle. I know we did the right thing, but we had a person on our staff that was really good at their job as far as being the hero, right? Could always fix the problem that came, good problem solver, right? Um, but tended to create the problems that he had to solve. Um, so we had to let that relationship and really hard because over the course of the time that he worked for us, we had a good relationship. There's always uh, rough times when you're backs up against the wall, you have a deadline or all this other stuff. But what the big realization that came out of me is like if it just doesn't feel right, if it doesn't look right, right, you gotta nip it in the bud and get to it early, right? Like um, in retrospect, if I ended that relationship 2 years earlier, it would have been so much better for our business, right? Like so yeah, just really kind of pay attention. Don't assume that uh, everything's going well just because somebody tells you it's going well. You have to kind of like be aware of what's going on and make sure you don't have somebody that's saying one thing to you and then another thing to your clients and derailing the train. They
Yeah,
say they say it takes a team or it takes a village to build a business, but one person can upset it really quick.
yeah, exactly. Is interesting. You said that I was thinking about the you hear the stories from time to time of the volunteer firefighters that uh, are the ones that start the fire, so they have one to fight. Unfortunately, so if you were when you think about your values, clear communication, strong relationships, seamless customer experience. How do you push that DNA deep within your organization?
We talk about it a lot, right? Like your core values are such a valuable tool because it's a decision-making tool, right? So like one of the things that we talk about it a lot is integrity, right? Like, are we doing the right thing, right? Um, if a uh, certain trade comes in over budget, right? Is it really fair to beat them up over that price, or did we miss something, or do we have a role in that? Um, kind of having those values in place help make that decision, right? So we talk about as a team. We actually, when we put together our core values that are on the website, um, we really did that as a team. Like, what do you value? Um, and that's hard, especially when you're working with technicians, right? They're like, what are you talking about? We're just trying to get things done. But taking a little bit of time, building that structure out with your team is really important. Taking care of each other, making sure that uh, you're not uh, throwing somebody under the bus, so to speak. All that really comes into it. So I feel like the culture that we've built, um, that one individual we kind of took a step back, but we're really back on track, and I feel that everybody that works for us, and we consider our trade partners an extended arm of the company, right? They feel supported. They don't feel like they're trapped. If a problem comes up, they know that we're going to work together through to find a solution. That stuff's important.
Good. So, if you were mentoring an aspiring contractor who wants to scale up their business with craftsmen and their values intact, what are three pieces of advice you would give them in today's world?
Um, Number one, like take a lot of notes, right? Like document where you're at, what you're doing. Like if you're a carpenter, right? Like set a timer. How long does it take you to set that door, right? If you forget, right, like go back and monitor that process because you're probably distracted and you could probably do it better, right? Just paying attention, right? As a technician, you know how long things take, but if you don't document that, then when you move into a business leader role, uh, you know, where are you going to get that metric from? Um, so yeah, write down what went well, what didn't go so well, and how you're going to improve it. Um, so that's one thing. Um, Take advantage of uh, podcasts. There's so much information that's available that wasn't available when I started my business, right? Like you're not in this alone, right? Every problem that you have come to has been solved 100 times before. That was a big thing that kind of like was a slap in the face moment. Talking to Michael Stone one time, and he's like, you just got to put the emotion aside and just deal with it, right? Like um, sometimes we overcomplicate the problems. Um, and then the last piece I would say is really pay attention, right? You're putting gas in your truck, you're putting mileage on your truck, right? Don't discount that. That's overhead, right? Like keep track of it, know what it is, right? Because as you put that into your um, business model and learn your profit and loss statements, your financial documents, right? Like if you have that in front of you, you have a lot of confidence. Even if you make it up to start, you might you could just go online and create a simple spreadsheet. uh, so many of the young companies that I talk to, I was like, well, we don't have any overhead. I'm like, well, what happens when your truck breaks down, right? Like you might not seem you have that, but right, like pay attention to that stuff. Know your numbers. Uh, and that really gives you so much confidence pricing your work. Um, can't be stated enough.
Hmm, that's powerful. Looking ahead, what excites you most about the next 3 to 5 years for Crossbeam?
Uh, like it's an exciting time, and exciting can be positive, and it can also be scary, right? So as we see, the economy, the markets, the politics, as we see all this kind of unfold, one of our biggest segments of business historically has been that baby boomer segment, right? Well, you know, they're starting to change their spending habits. So um, something that really we're working hard on is looking forward to serving some of these younger generations and understanding how they buy and what a good customer experience looks like for them, because it's a little bit different than what maybe I've grown up with, or what um, we've been implementing. So uh, growing into that, having discussions with young professionals, that's really exciting. Um, Salt Lake City's booming, right? Like we're one of the top growing cities in the country right now. So it excites me to see what that's going to look like moving forward as some of these older neighborhoods, try to modernize, and also the growth of the resort area. We're going to have another Olympics coming uh, down the road here. So all the infrastructure and excitement that goes around that's, really, really exciting. But how can we do this in a way that stays true to Crossbeam, that vision, and really kind of taking care of people along the way.
Yeah, that's good. And for our listeners that want to learn more about you or want to connect with you, what's the best place for them to do that?
So our website's kind of the cornerstone, so crossbeambuilders.com. We really enjoy Facebook and Instagram. Instagram, we post a lot more photos, and we try to be, kind of specific with Instagram to keep that moving forward. We do have a YouTube channel as well. Uh, Post a lot of testimonials on that. So, and then always, my number's on the website. You can feel free to send me an email and reach out. In my experience, both in the ski industry as well as the construction industry, mentorship and helping other people learn has been something that I've really enjoyed. Right. So when somebody has a question or a problem, uh, I don't know how to deal with this. Love having those conversations, right? Even if they're not the easiest conversation in the world. You know, a better uh, industry is, going to be better for everybody, right?
Excellent. Well, Chris, thanks for coming on and just sharing your experience and providing insights for our audience today. And it's been a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been great to be part of the show.
Awesome. And to our audience, thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to having you on the next episode.